be completed before the end of August. So by September, we can have that decision ratified and have Martinique as a special ceremony in Guyana, when we travel to Guyana in February, so that they can have a formal ceremony welcoming Martinique and Curaçao to this board. We recognize the associate members and the expression to be more involved in the CARICOM community, and it is something that we wish to encourage and to certainly provide support to the associate members in the move to become more involved and engaged within the CARICOM community. Because the reality is, this is one CARICOM, and we should not be in a situation where we're skipping dots. You know, we have to connect all the dots, and the intention is to connect all the dots, and shows that CARICOM is a voice of reason. CARICOM is a voice that attracts the attention of the world, because once we're united, I think we can address a number of issues. On the issue of free movement, we deliberated on this matter. We have taken a decision to seek to have the free movement of all categories of people to live in the world. Obviously, there are some legal issues that we have to examine, and we are giving the legal people some months to examine those legal issues and to ensure that we can come to us by 30th of March to take a definitive position on this. And so we understand that there will be some challenges for some, but we are committed to this. In addition to the free movement, there will be certain contingent rights that will be associated with the free movement. Access to primary health and emergency health, access to basic education, pre-primary, primary, and secondary education. Of course, we have this social security agreement is already that people can benefit from. But we believe this is a fundamental part of the integration architecture. And at 50, we could not leave children today and not speak about the core of the integration movement, that is people's ability to move freely within the Caribbean community. And I think we would have served and have served the community well at this meeting by arriving at that decision. And we hope that to see that it will be implemented by the 30th of March 2024. So this is great news. I think I believe with all the issues that we have discussed and the number of decisions we've taken, this is the decision that we've taken at this conference. And I believe the founding fathers are smiling from heaven that the present generation of us were bold enough to arrive at a decision moving forward. We have also taken the decision to hold a retreat in Dominica, okay? August 18 and 19. I have been clear to all of us that these suits and ties and will all stay home. That we will be in t-shirts and jeans and shorts, possibly. Focusing on some critical and core issues of the community, so that when we get to Guyana, before we get to Guyana, we can put a number of issues in place and clarity to the discussions. And we're hoping that that can become a regular feature, because when you are less stiff with all of this clothes on, then you might need a little bit. And I think, and being in the fresh mountain breeze of Dominica, where your nostrils are cleared and your mind is cleared and all the stress away, then you'll be in a better way to think and to arrive at some decisions. So we look forward to this. We'll be reviewing the governance issues within CARICOM and other areas, including functional cooperation. We certainly have to enhance functional cooperation among our nations. These are the things which matter to the average person on the streets in the Caribbean community. that they can see tangible benefits in all of these fancy decisions and all of these documents, but how do we make life better for people? And we spoke about hassle-free travel. When you get to a point, you don't have to be harassed. We have to feel, the ease of moving from one country to the other within the Caribbean community. And so this is very important. Finally, on cricket, cricket. I still believe that we have to rally around the West Indies. We'll be hosting the West Indies and in the next week in Dominica. And certainly I'm urging all my citizens and residents to come out and to support West Indies cricket. Our comments about West Indies cricket comes out of because of our passion, our commitment for the game. And the reality is we do not want to lose. And we do not like to lose. And when we lose, we get vexed. Not because we have any personal issue with anybody, but we need there to appear to be a fighting spirit. We take it personal. And so the comments of the great Prime Minister here of Trinidad and Tobago on his Facebook page is out of his passion and as a West Indian, and ensuring that he should be shouting in excitement and not kicking his toe against the wall in frustration by this. By Chairman decree, I have appointed him as the new chairman of the subcommittee, Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on Cricket. We have agreed with the president of the West Indies Cricket Board, or West Indies Cricket, to meet sometime next week, where we shall meet to discuss West Indies cricket and how we can work together. To better position our cricket so that we can go back to the glorious days that we all known for. And our UK friends are smiling because they were these days, back in these days we were the 6 runs, We'll come days, Minister Rotten, to be able to bowl England for 46. Security, I want to place on public record our profound gratitude and thanks and acknowledgement to the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana for his leadership, for his diligence on the issue of food and nutrition security. Making the reports coming out from our respective countries, there's a heightened interest of farmers, investments in agriculture. Before a move to reduce the import bill by 25% by 2025. And so some concrete plans, we're mobilizing the resources, both financial and technical. The agreement signed between the of knowledge, expertise, sharing of resources, truly a united front in seeking to improve and increase the production and the quality of agricultural produce within the Caribbean community. But at the end of the day, we have to eat what we produce. So the power really is not in the hands of the government. Reducing the food import bill is in the hands of the people, the consumers of the Caribbean. The supermarkets will sell what we buy. Okay? You understand? For the ladies, we can see that with the eyelashes, major importation of Caribbean because we're buying it. And I think if we can buy the agricultural produce, and demand the agricultural produce, then the supermarkets and the restaurants will sell to you what you want to buy. And all of the acrylic nails and so forth, let us, when you go to supermarkets, demand the items from Guyana, demand the items from Trinidad and Tobago, demand the items from Barbados, from St. Lucia, and we will see how quickly we can reduce the food import bill in the Caribbean. I will stop here to receive any questions. all difficult questions you ask to the rest of my colleagues. The easier ones you ask to me, please. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
But I also want to say, you know, we have a wonderful group of leaders working together. And the spirit of camaraderie, the willingness to give and to take. And I think the region is a very good time now to be able to capitalize on the number of actions that we need to take. And I believe coming out of Dominica, you will see even a renewed sense of vigor and determination and commitment to working together and ensuring that the governance issues and the functional cooperation matters are dealt with and so forth. So I am very impressed. I've been around for some time, but this meeting was really a wonderful one, and I want to commend all my colleagues, both the full members and the associate members, for the commitment. They worked very hard, and certainly in these 6 months they'll be working very, very hard. Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Just to indicate that when you wish to ask your questions, could you please indicate your name and the agency that you represent. We have a full table of leaders, including the President of Suriname, His Excellency the President of Suriname, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, His Excellency the President of Guyana, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Prime Minister of Barbados, and the Secretary General. So, as I indicated, when you wish. And, of course, our host and the chairman. So that when you, as I said before, when you wish to ask a question, please raise your hand and indicate your name and the agency you represent. Aaron?
Thank you, Leonard. Good evening, distinguished leaders. Prime Minister...
And you are?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oren Gordon, freelance broadcaster and journalist. Prime Minister Skerrit, you said that you expect some concrete movement on free movement of skills by the early part of next year. Could you fill us in, please, on the specifics of what it is that you hope to put in place? At present, there are a limited number of categories of people allowed to move and work freely throughout the Caribbean. What is it that you're proposing? Are you thinking of going big and throwing it open totally? The second part of my question, you said there were some legal challenges to overcome. But weren't those legal challenges apparent 25, 30 years ago? What's new now? And my last question to any one of the leaders, CARICOM is 50, and could you, for the benefit of the Caribbean public, help us to evaluate how effective to, in effect, grade CARICOM over the last 50 years on the big headline issues: free movement of skills, free movement in terms of travel, and all the other big headline issues. I understand it's a broad sweep, but 50 is a great time to reflect in such a manner.
Prime Minister Barbados, you'll take the first part.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Broad sweep might be, in cricketing terms, a swipe, but I don't go swiping outside the off stump lest you get caught. Suffice it to say that the heads have agreed that we are now moving beyond just the freedom of movement of skills to freedom of movement of people. Out of an abundance of caution and to be sure-footed, there are some aspects of the treaty that will require amendment, and therefore we are giving ourselves between now and the 30th of March 2024 to make the amendments, because we recognize as well that there may have to be an approach that does not put countries or make countries liable to any form of suit with respect to some of the rights. So there has to be a minimum set of rights guaranteed for the movement of citizens. That will be discussed and agreed upon. That will be captured in the amendments to the treaty. that will also have to be financed, and we're looking at the CARICOM Development Fund as being able to of services up to the same acceptable period and level. Against that backdrop, we give ourselves these few months. You ask what is different? The revised Treaty of Chaguaramas did not exist 30, 35 years ago, and that revised Treaty of Chaguaramas imposes certain precepts upon us that, unless we carve it out, will be there to make countries liable. During the pandemic, we had to carve out certain things. There were restrictions on movement for public health purposes. That was understood. The treaty provides for restrictions for national security purposes. The treaty provides for restrictions for balance of payments purposes. We have determined that in order to facilitate freedom of movement, we may have to do it in a way where we guarantee a minimum level of rights. And that may relate to primary education, as you heard Prime Minister Skerritt say, pre-primary, primary, secondary education. It may relate to primary health care. It may relate to emergency health care. We are already covered with Social Security rights through the agreement that exists in CARICOM. So what we are doing is to ensure that the desire of heads is met by the reality of implementation. And we give ourselves this period of time to be able to make the amendments to the treaty so that countries can do so without fear of any further recriminations. Thank you.
Thank you, PM.
That is why Prime Minister Skerritt said that the heads who founded this entity would be smiling on us, because in a very real sense, this is what ordinary people want. And I want to say something. In a region that is underpopulated, and in a region that is facing the most difficult crises, from climate to recovery from pandemic to debt to all kinds of other problems, if ever there was a time that we need to come together, that this conference reflected a mood of can-do and optimism, but realistic execution will ground us, and that is why we have fashioned it in the way that we have.
If I may be permitted a follow-up, Mr. Robertson, how big and broad do you intend to go beyond the limited category of workers now afforded those, if you like, privileges?
Mr. Gordon, I don't think you're understanding us, you know. Freedom of movement of people. So it's all, A-L-L. There's no services anymore. And that's why you saw heads clap when the Prime Minister announced it, because this now gives full expression to what every Caribbean person has wanted since we've had control of our destiny. Okay? What we want to do, however, is to ensure that when that movement takes place, that it takes place in a way that is orderly, that is effective, that gives true expression to what we want to do, but equally does not expose governments unnecessarily to problems that they would not otherwise have anticipated, okay, because of the treaty as it's currently drafted.
Good evening.
Yes, hold on. Yes?
Good evening.
Young lady, go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, heads of governments. Orvashi Tiwari Rupnarayan from TV6, Trinidad. I'm staying on the topic of free movement to live and work. Of course, Prime Minister Skerritt, in your opening statement, you did mention possibly more reliance on the regional security system and, of course, the implementation agency for crime and security impacts. But, of course, a few months ago, we know that these two agencies came under very much question with one judge describing, with what one judge described as the kidnapping of TNT national Brent Thomas. CARICOM citizens are somewhat still in the dark as to what exactly happened, how these two agencies were activated. Some are alleging unauthorized use of these agencies and alleged abuse of power. Did this fumble at all arise during your discussions? And of course, how can citizens be assured that this may not recur? Thank you.
Well, I don't think we can respond to this. You know, impacts and all of the security architecture, you know, we believe that we accept and we know that they're operating within the laws of the countries, and they have served us well. And I think where we have to be very careful that we as politicians, whether we're in government or out of government, that we do not make statements that are not factual, and in order to seek to score political points. You know, we have to be very careful that we don't unnecessarily put into question these institutions that are serving us well, especially where our own security within the region is concerned. So I do not subscribe to what you're saying, and therefore I cannot respond to your specific question with the allegations that have been made where impacts and others are concerned.
Good evening to you, Prime Minister Skerrit. Curtis Matthew from Dominica. My question is on the engagement between the U.S. and CARICOM this afternoon. You, Prime Minister Skerrit, said that you all have made some requests to the U.S. The embargo against Cuba, of course, sanctions on Venezuela. Was there any concrete commitment coming from the United States to CARICOM, especially as CARICOM celebrates its 50th anniversary? Thank you very much.
Well, you know, our position on Cuba is well known. Both our founding fathers and ourselves have been very clear and strident with regards to the call for the removal of the blockade against Cuba. In respect to Venezuela, we have made it clear that we do not believe that there's a justification to have those sanctions on Venezuela. We in the Caribbean, especially those of us who have been signatories and beneficiaries of the Petro-Caribbean Agreement, have suffered immensely. And therefore our citizens, especially with the high cost or price of petroleum products on the global market. And so we have seen the Petro-Caribbean Agreement virtually come to a halt in some of our countries because of the inability of Venezuela to export the petroleum products to our respective countries. And out of this Petro-Caribbean Agreement, because you have a deferred payment, especially when the price goes beyond $100 on the international market, a lot of these funds will be used by our respective countries for economic and social investments, you know, and job creation. And so we believe that that the issue of sanctions on Venezuela should be removed, and allow the people of Venezuela to go about their lives, especially in these challenging times. You know, we believe that there are other ways of us addressing our concerns, but certainly everyone else in the Caribbean should really be very firm in respect to our calls for the removal of the sanctions in Venezuela.
Did you all, Prime Minister, get any commitment from the U.S. on these matters?
Well, you know, obviously they will note those requests and the submissions. They have raised certain issues of what Venezuela should do or should not do. Venezuela is a sovereign country, and so forth. Some of those things I personally don't agree with, but this is obviously the U.S. may have a particular reason why they have those sanctions in place, but from our vantage point, we don't think that there are any justifications for it. And after so many years, we believe that the time has come for those sanctions to be removed.
Thank you, Kijan.
Peter Richards.
Thanks. Kijan Haynes from Guardian Media Trinidad. Just tacking on to that question, as we are talking about Venezuela and Cuba, was there any discussion on a more tolerant approach to accepting refugees from those countries? And specifically to Dr. Rowley, any assurances from the U.S. about extending the temporary lifting of the sanctions, the 2-year agreement that we have to help us with our Dragon deal? Thank you.
We didn't get down to that level of specificity, but what you should understand is that we are, at the moment, engaged with the United States in a way that we have not before, and that is the first hurdle that we have to cross. And we make our case and we continue to make them. We have further meetings with the United States delegation tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, so the conversations continue.
And on refugees?
No, we didn't actually have much of a discussion on refugees. I mean, Trinidad and Tobago in particular, we manage our situation with migrants under our Immigration Act, and we're a sovereign country, and we protect our interests in those matters. I see a lot of people taking it upon themselves to tell us what to do with and how and in our country. The bottom line is that we do have laws, and we are a country governed by laws, and we operate based on the laws that exist at the time.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Our first question online.
Sorry, just to further point, regards to our engagement with the United States, and I agree with the Prime Minister, there has been a heightened engagement by the United States. Coming from the Summit of the Americas, met with President Biden and Vice President Harris. We've met with Vice President Harris, I believe, last month in the Bahamas. And here today, not only the Secretary of State, but several Congress persons were here. We engage ourselves in more than 2 hours, a number of items. And I think we are setting a very good platform for engagement with the United States. We have said to the United States that they have been overlooking us for way too long, and they have taken note of this, and we're seeing a practical change in the whole approach towards the Caribbean, and we welcome those engagements.
Thank you, PM. Our first question online, Erica Virtue of the Jamaica Gleaner. Erica, are you still with us?
Yes, I am hearing you. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are hearing you now.
Yes, I'm asking, what more can we be told of the specifics of the arrangement between what Rwanda has offered to the solution in the situation in Haiti, and what specific decisions did CARICOM itself take regarding the ongoing situation there?
Well, Rwanda, since last September, indicated its willingness to provide peacekeeping and security personnel and to help strengthen the National Police of Haiti, the Haitian National Police. There are a number of actions or steps we believe going forward which we need to take, and of course the Prime Minister of Haiti has made it very clear in numerous statements in Jamaica at the conference of engagement of the various stakeholders. He made it very clear here on a number of occasions that he will not seek election in Haiti, and that he is only prepared to lead a government up until the hosting of credible, free and fair elections. Now, we are also advancing the view that there must be a UN security resolution on the matter so that we can get a coalition of nations who are prepared to support the Haitian government, Haitian people, in addressing both the security and humanitarian crisis in Haiti. Now, the issue of financing of this, and we believe that France and Canada and the United States and others, it's a matter we have put to them, and we'll be advancing this from the Caribbean Committee standpoint to have these interventions financed. This is going to take us 1 year to 2 years. There also the issue of broadening the government so that there can be greater consensus among parties, that more stakeholders need to form part of a national government in place in Haiti so that there can be greater buy-in to the actions that we need to take along with our brothers and sisters in Haiti. We have in place an eminent group of persons, 3 former prime ministers, Prime Minister Dr. Anthony of St. Lucia, Prime Minister Bruce Golding of Jamaica, and Prime Minister Perry Christie of the Bahamas. They've been working diligently in advancing the cause. They'll be going to Haiti next week to meet again with stakeholders. They'll be going to the United States to meet with stakeholders there and to ensure that they can get some kind of consensus. We believe that some of the actions that we are proposing there, based on consultation with the Haitian people, will put into a sharper focus the steps that we need to take so that we can get some resources to Haiti and seek to resolve the challenges confronting our Haitian brothers and sisters. But always noting that this will be and must be a Haitian-led solution. We are here at the back or at the side supporting them, but it must be a Haitian-led solution. And so we're simply here as brothers and sisters helping with advancing the cause to a solution to this crises confronting our brothers and sisters.
Mr. Chairman, I should probably add also at this stage that Prime Minister Henry would have specifically asked for a derogation from the freedom of movement agreement that we would have made among ourselves, given their circumstances, and we have agreed. So I just put that on the table for the avoidance of doubt. Thank you.
Thank you, PM. There's a second question online before we come back in the room. Jacqueline Charles, Miami Herald.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Prime Minister Scarrett, I just want to be clear on the Haiti issue. And I have one other about arms, by the arms. Are you saying that CARICOM has changed its position since February on supporting an international force for Haiti? Because when that issue came up, CARICOM opted to focus more on the police to that effect.
Yes. Well, in regards to our intention there is to strengthen the police, the Haitian police, in order to create a corridor, a safe corridor, to be able to bring in the humanitarian support which Haiti desperately needs at this time. The reality is, as far as we understand it, the Haitians who are going to bed hungry, the Haitians who have no access to food, and therefore we need to create this safe corridor to bring this humanitarian support. At present, if you send, as you may know, Ms. Charles, if you send any quantity of food items to Haiti, it will not get to the beneficiaries. And how do we get this? Strengthening the national police, providing them with the resources, providing them with the advice they require, and create that safe corridor so that we can have the resources coming in. So we ameliorate the security situation and we allow the environment to be safe enough to bring in the humanitarian support so that we can have peace and tranquility, hopefully, in Haiti, and move to the other political issues of free and fair elections and have a properly elected government for the people of Haiti. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. And all of these things are coming out of the consultation with the Haitian stakeholders. These are not things that we have created within CARICOM. They're all based on what the stakeholders are saying to us, and we're capturing the threads of what they're saying. And this is what we're saying could be the next steps for this. In respect to the United States, as we said, this question of what is the U.S. view on Haiti and how the U.S. sees itself being able to support. As we speak, the U.S. continues to provide support to the Haitian National Police. Secretary Blinken indicated, because we shared with him our views, our thinking, and he indicated to us that what we're proposing is really not far away from their own thinking. So it's a matter for us now and the Security Council, or the Security Council folks to really look at the situation and seek to pass a resolution. There are some countries we need to speak to as CARICOM, and we have taken on ourselves to speak to those countries who are members of the Security Council so that we can have unanimity at the Security Council so that we can give the cover to many countries who would like to participate in providing the support to the Haitian people on the ground.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Peter?
Peter Richards, Caribbean Media Corporation.
One minute. There's another part to that question which hasn't been answered, is whether the United States has accepted that more can be done at their end with respect to the illicit trade in firearms. And the answer is yes. That was a major part of our discussion with the United States and among ourselves. And we're happy to report that we are seeing some specific actions by the United States in that direction.
Peter Richards, Caribbean Media Corporation, Barbados. I think I just heard the Prime Minister of Barbados make reference to the fact that the Haitians have put something on the table that I wasn't clear. Are we saying within the whole context of the CSME, the free movement that we're trying to move towards, would the issue of visas needed by Haitians to visit some Caribbean countries, would that be eliminated? Would that be removed? And secondly, Prime Minister Skerritt, you talked about a retreat in Dominica on August 18th and 19th to discuss, quote, some critical and core issues. Could you expand on what you mean by critical and core issues? Thank you.
If I may, the status quo remains. What we've said is that the Prime Minister of Haiti asked that the arrangements that we put in place for freedom of movement, that Haiti be excused from those arrangements, a derogation. And we have agreed, because Haiti's circumstances obviously different at this point, and it's a very delicate situation. So the status quo will remain for those countries who, in fact, still have visa requirements for Haitians traveling. Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Yes, the number of issues that we have set ourselves a time frame towards action. You have issues of trade barriers, and the president of Guyana, in his presentation on food and nutrition security, highlighted the need for us to address the issue of trade barriers. The other issue of governance within the Caribbean community, the issues within governance, the issues of security, taking stock of the geopolitics of the world and how do we position ourselves going forward. COP28 is coming, that we need to have a clearly defined, cohesive position going to COP28 where every one of us will speak from the same hymn sheet. And then you have issue of climate financing, the need for the reform or transformation of the international financial systems and architecture, so that we can have a better deal for ourselves here within the Caribbean community. So these are some of the issues that we need to look at, and there are some other functional cooperation areas that we need to look at to enhance the cooperation among CARICOM countries. Yeah.
I noticed so far tonight we've not spoken on the issue of transportation, and more specifically air transportation yet.
Sure. Well, yes, we discussed a number of issues. We're simply highlighting some of them because of time. But yes, we received a report on air transportation. Caribbean Airlines has been doing a fantastic job thus far in seeking to help fill the void that has been created with the absence of LIAT. And then you have other airlines. You have Bahamas Air that'll be looking at doing some flights within the Caribbean and onto North America as well. And we thank the Prime Minister and I'm hoping that we can get the buy-in of all of us in respect to this entity, which we believe will complement what CAL is doing, will complement what Caribbean Airlines and others are doing. Because there's no doubt, Peter, that we have to address the issue of interregional travel. I mean, it's impossible to get from one island to the other. But the role which LIAT played in interregional travel, we have not been able to fill that void. And therefore, we must come up with an arrangement that will help us fill that void created in the absence of LIAT.
Peter, this is a good point to advise you that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has received and has accepted CAL's new strategic plan. And in that plan, it involves CAL obtaining additional equipment to do more in the region. And CAL is also in discussions with the government of Barbados. Maybe the Prime Minister of Barbados might want to mention how the discussions have gone.
Thank you. We actually are about to sign an agreement with CAL if it hasn't been signed by the airport, even as we've spoken. As Prime Minister Skerritt said, this issue is not a simple issue. And the truth is that we have suffered from a significant reduction in seat numbers. We believe that there's enough space for CAL, for Inter-Caribbean, and for any other mechanism that we resolve. And I want to single out also Prime Minister Davis, who has stepped up to the plate even while Bahamas is not a member of the CARICOM single market and economy. And they will be testing out the market for us this summer by being able to have connections from North America into the Caribbean. Part of our difficulty has also been the reduction in flights out of North America generally. And if you dig deep into the industry, and you can talk to Cal, you can talk to others, part of the constraint is the absence of capacity of getting planes and pilots. And therefore, you can't just snap your finger and have access to both. And that is why we have to have a cooperative approach to the resolution of the problems rather than believing that any one airline can solve it overnight.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Young lady.
Cleopatra Murphy, Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. With regards to the free movement of people, Prime Minister Motley would have mentioned the Bahamas not being a part of the Caribbean single market economy. In terms of what it means for the Bahamas, what does this full free movement of people then mean for the Bahamas? What is our current stance on that? Can you explain?
We're not impacted by it, but we'll facilitate travel to the Bahamas. And the same rules and laws will apply as it is now.
I guess so. I want to know, how is it that we're going to facilitate it for other countries?
No, we are not a part of the CSME, and so the arrangements there do not apply to us. We are protocol out of it, but we will be cooperating and collaborating in all other matters relating to CARICOM issues.
If I can give more context, Bahamas and Montserrat are not parts of the CSME, and therefore they would not be subject to freedom of movement of skills or freedom of movement of people. So you have the two of them out, and you have Haiti that is specifically asked to be left out. There may be one or two other countries that may have peculiar circumstances that may want to say so, but for the most part, we have agreed as an integration community that we need now to be able to fuel the aspirations of our people while shouldering the responsibilities that are necessary to propel growth. We need people for growth. And if we don't have people, we're not going to get the growth.
Thank you, Prime Minister. There will be two more questions, one online and one in the House. The gentleman behind Peter.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Dylan Deschamps from Loop Caribbean News. I just wanted some clarification. Does the decision on free movement include the single economic space that Prime Minister Skerritt had asked for? And also, regarding free movement, it's no secret that we have a lot of xenophobia in the Caribbean regarding people from the poorer countries. So what are the government's plans to address the fears of the people on the ground? And my third question, you mentioned that you will be welcoming Curacao and Martinique to CARICOM next year. Are any discussions taking place to welcome the Dominican Republic and Cuba, possibly as associate states or even full members?
Yeah, the issue of the single domestic space with regards to the decision for the free movement of people, that now subsumes the single space. Okay, so it's moving in the right direction. The issue of Curacao and Martinique, they're both coming in as associate members. We believe there was no formal discussions in respect to Dominican Republic and Cuba, but we believe that in time to come, they may very well become members of CARICOM. But there was no formal discussion on it. Some years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we had engagements with discussions with the Dominican Republic on Dominican Republic joining the CARICOM. But for one reason or the other, those discussions was suspended. But we believe that at some point in time, we will have to engage in those discussions again. And that's the reality of the world. That's the reality of the exposure which CARICOM has, how people view CARICOM. And if you look at it, the number of countries that are accredited to CARICOM, you know, if you compare this list now to 10 years ago, it's a significant difference. So there's a growing interest within the global space, within the Caribbean, on CARICOM and the desire of many to be part of the CARICOM experience.
Thank you. Final question, David Papano of the Sabrok News.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My question is based on CARICOM's 2025 target. Has CARICOM taken any decision in implementing a fast ferry service? And also, can they say if the deadline will be met for the 2025 reduction of food imports? And what products has there been progress on, and which countries are on track?
I think, first of all, thank you very much for the question. I think we have addressed the first part of the question in terms of transportation. The transportation plan is not only air, but sea, and that is exactly why we need a retreat. We have a number of studies that are completed. We have a number of documents that need to be read and analyzed so that we can move to decision making. And that is why Prime Minister Scarrett pointed to the fact that we need some concentrated work at the retreat so that we can come up with some strong positions and decisions as to where we're going. In terms of the food production, as Prime Minister said, I believe that we have to be real. The circumstances around us is changing every single day. There are some structural problems, some institutional problems that we are resolving. Take, for example, the issue of poultry. From 2020 to now, there are three key inputs in terms of feed production: rice, corn, and soya. You had a 100% increase in the cost of rice as an input, and between 65 and 55% in the cost of corn and soya. We, as a region, our total forward planning capacity in terms of storage for corn, rice, and soya, we can only store 20% of what we require. So when there is a glut on the market and the prices are low, we cannot make use of that because there is no storage capacity. So we are now pointing these facts out to the private sector so they can now see the viability of investing in the storage facility. And we have a number of countries who are now partnering in relation to this. So it's a issue that is evolving. Whether we are on track, based on our original targets, we are doing well, and I believe that we have now the real possibility of meeting those targets. Yesterday in Trinidad and Tobago, they have distributed, I think, 75 tons of paddy, and they're going back into rice production. 3,000 acres. Seed paddy. They're going back into the production of rice. 3,000 acres of rice. Barbados, going now into the production of prawns, setting up the food terminal, putting up the sanitary guidelines. So St. Lucia, diversifying their agriculture portfolio. In every single country, we have seen more investment, more interest, more dynamism, and this is going in the right direction. We're also looking to use technology, looking at hydroponics, looking at aquaculture, high-yielding crops. So it is a very, very integrated and holistic plan that seeks to justify the rate of return, that seeks to rebuild interest. We're also focusing on research and development, the removal of the barriers. So it's a very complex plan that I think, to do justice to what we're doing in many of these areas. I've heard Prime Minister Skerritt, we need to have maybe a session with the media, a whole day session in the media as to where we are going and how we are going and what we are doing to get where we want to be. I believe that we have set ourselves some self-imposed targets, some self-imposed barriers within ourselves to get these things done, and you must appreciate that. I'm very, very confident that at 50, we are on the right track and in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you,
Follow up.
Mr. President. Please.
Can I just follow up, please? Thank you very much, Mr. President. But could you or Prime Minister Motley give an update on where is the progress on the Barbados-Guyana food terminal?
We actually have the private sector working with us, and ironically, it's also a Trinidadian enterprise, so it's really a misnomer to just say Barbados-Guyana, because it is Barbados-Guyana, Trinidad, in terms of the structure of the investment, the source of produce, and the agro-processing that will take place. We've identified the lands in Liers in St. Michael in Barbados. The designs for the buildings are completed, and I would expect that they should be going in to the planning department, and the appropriate studies for environmental impact assessment, etc., are going to be undertaken very shortly to be able to facilitate the planning considerations.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we could stay here whole night, but unfortunately this has come to an end, and I want to thank the heads of government and the Secretary General for being available for your questions. Thank you and good night.